Welcome back to another GeekaWhat video, and today I'm taking you over the best $300 gaming PC build for 2016. That is right, 2016. Let's kick it off with a bang with this epic $300 gaming PC build. So before I get into it, drop a like rating, make sure to subscribe and follow my Twitter at GeekaWhat, and let's get straight into today's build. So the first question I get asked is, how will this build perform? So I'm going to tell you that now. This build will smash some of the most popular games such as World of Warcraft, League of Legends, Minecraft and CS GO at 1080p high settings, 30 to 60 frames per second, and also do quite well in some of the latest AAA titles at 720 and 1080p, low to medium settings with anti-aliasing turned off or very low, and achieve between 30, 45 and 60 frames per second depending on the title, so such as Witcher 3 or the GTA 5 as shown on your screen now. So let's get straight into the parts list. The CPU I've gone for is actually an APU. An APU combines CPU and GPU into one. So rather than having a dedicated GPU, it's combined within the CPU chip. It's the AMD A10 7850K, 3.7 GHz, and it's a quad-core CPU inside of the APU, if that makes sense. It comes at $125, which really is great value, and the 3.7 GHz clock speed means it can do 3.7 billion things per second, which is crazy. It is also overclockable due to the fact that the name has got a little K on the end, 7850K, so you can get, I'd get this up to about 4 GHz easy, absolutely no problem, but overclocking will void your warranty, although it is something that is encouraged, well not encouraged, but supported by manufacturers. It's one of AMD's highest end, if not their highest end APUs, and very, very solid. The quad core bit means that it's got 4 cores and is compatible with all of the latest AAA titles, so an aftermarket GPU such as a GTX 950 or R7 360 is a great option later on down the line, and that really will make this machine an absolute beast at AAA titles. For the motherboard, I went for the Asus A68HM-K. It's a Micro ATX motherboard with an FM2 Plus socket. It's got a slightly newer socket design over the FM2 socket, and at $37, sorry, looking at the wrong price, it is very, very good value. It's got USB 3 and PCI 3. PCI 3 allows you to add another graphics card in later on down the line to a dedicated graphics card, and as I said, that will smash the latest AAA titles at 1080p, 60 FPS, medium to high settings if you do grab one of those. But in this current state, this build is very, very solid. For RAM, I went for a Mushkin Stealth 8GB, 2x4GB configuration at DDR3 2133 speed. Normally with RAM you can just say, oh, shove a 4GB DIMM there, another 4GB DIMM there, an 8GB DIMM, a single 16, 32GB DIMM, whatever that may be. But in this case you really can't, and there's a very specific use case, hence why I've gone for this RAM. So first, let's break down the name a little bit. The 8GB bit, it's how big it is. So 8GB of RAM, and the reason I've perhaps gone a tiny bit overkill, you could get away with 4, is because the graphics chip on the APU has to share it with the CPU as opposed to having its own dedicated memory, and that is the second reason I've gone for the higher speed, because normally a graphics card will have its own GDDR5 memory, and instead the graphics chip on this APU has to use the system memory. So having it faster than the standard sort of DDR3 1600 or DDR3 1333 will increase performance quite significantly. The fact that I've gone for 2 4GB DIMMs rather than a single 8GB DIMM may be a strange thing to some people, as that blocks the upgrade path on this motherboard. It's only got 2 RAM DIMM slots, therefore you can't ever have 16GB of RAM without redoing all of the RAM, so chucking all of this away and getting a new set, as opposed to putting in one 8GB DIMM now and another 8GB DIMM later to get 16GB. And that is because it needs dual channel. Dual channel gives the APU twice the bandwidth and increases performance very, very significantly, so getting this RAM in this configuration is very nice. 16GB is completely overkill given the nature of the hardware in this build, and even if you did add a graphics card in later on down the line, it isn't 16GB is still going to be overkill unless you are sort of changing the motherboard and the CPU anyway. For storage, I went for a Seagate Barracuda 1TB 3.5-inch 7200 RPM internal hard drive, and a lot of the names are very long and daunting, but don't be daunted. Seagate is the manufacturer, Barracuda is the style of drive, so their brand, if you will. 1TB is the capacity, gives 1000GB, 3.5-inch is the size, really standard for a hard drive, don't need to worry about that, and 7200 RPM is the speed, really as fast as hard drives get. 1TB is twice the capacity of the next generation consoles, and at $45 this hard drive is not only reliable but a very, very good deal. It is going to break at some point, and hard drives are going to lose data a little bit easier than SSDs, but this and the 1TB WD Blue from Western Digital are pretty much aligned, but this just happened to be cheaper at the time. For the case, I went for the Thermaltake Versa H21. It's got a window on it, it's an ATX mid-tower case, so it's It supports the motherboard. It also supports the size up form factor from the motherboard as well. Gives you a bit more room to play around with and make this build a little bit easier. Front panel USB 3. Window on the side so you can admire your build when you're all done, and at $26 it is incredible value. For the power supply, I went for the EVGA 430 watt 80 plus certified ATX power supply. It's a wonder I can read all these names, I'm telling you. But 430 watts is more than enough. 80 plus certified means it's guaranteed to run at 80% efficiency at all times, and EVGA are very, very reliable with their power supplies, and for $25 it is a great deal. That wraps it up for this build. If you enjoyed it, drop a like rating, it really does help. Make sure to subscribe, drop any questions or comments below or on Twitter at GeekaWhat, and we'll see you as always in the next GeekaWhat video.